Good morning. My name is Parikh. My project was the 3D printed globe theater. The essential question was, how can technology like 3D printing change the way students understand history, literature, design, such as the globe theater? So before the globe, so it was basically my original project was teach middle school classes. It was about for period 6 and 7 where the Mr. D's middle school classes would learn from me how the 3D printing software worked. So I used Tinkercad, which is just a free CAD software on a web base. So you can use it from a Chromebook, from PC, anything. And it's really easy for kids to use and learn. So they learn some lessons about how to use it, how objects works. And then first they would have a paper of their drawing, whatever they wanted. Then after the lessons, they would make their design. And then we would export as an STL file. Then they would learn lessons about the slicing software, which was the Dremel slicing software Mr. D has, so both printers. And then about how basically the printer works, like you can't have just floating printing objects in the air, you need supports, all that. So then the research about after the globe theater. So the way this all happened was the project did not work out with the forms. I sent the middle school office. Nothing happened, no responses. So Ms. Barley gave me a beautiful idea about recreating the globe theater, 3D printing it, and I thought it would work beautiful with her unit. So then the research, so the importance of Shakespeare was they was the most influential writers in the English language, and his plays explored universal themes: love, death, betrayal, which like people still relate to today. And it also helps students understand language, history, and like the writing that we do today. So the importance of 3D models in classrooms is basically the 3D models allow the students to engage in the class. They don't wander off in some other place. They actually focus in and learn about that topic and lesson. And then honestly, it allows units that are difficult to understand. So like, say math, like for little kids, like you have 4 blocks, add 2, count each block, you get 2 plus 2 is 4, something like that. And then also connects technology, advanced technology, 3D printing and stuff to like subjects of history, literature, and art. So then how the 3D printers work, they basically are hot glue guns, if you think about it. There's hot glue guns which strap with motors, and basically it's G-code or code, and tells where the motors should go in an area and just print that, and it's just melted plastic. And then, so first, STL file is made, CAD software, and then sliced, and then sent to the printer. And the support temperature and support calibration is basically what affects the printer and how it prints. So my mentor was Mr. D. He knows experience, he knows the printers, and basically his room has the printers, which he can watch over them. And over the years of high school, I've been having a good connection with him and helping the other students learn about the 3D printers. He calls me a to-go 3D printer guy. And then so for this, he basically told me to research the model and scale, which would be appropriate. So he told me that, go down to Miss Barley, she'll tell you the right size. So I went down, and Miss Barley told me basketball width. So that's basically how it came up, and I have pictures of it later. And then he basically offered his great idea, which worked pretty well, was a 3D pen to fill in gaps around the edges. So there would be parts to it, because the printer's only 25 millimeters by 25 by 25. It's not very big. And the globe is 10 inches wide. So like 30 parts were made, and they would 3D pen fit together, and then they'd be sanded. He recommends sanding it and then painting it for the appearance. So about the globe, actually, so look, the Blackfriars Theater was the first, which was owned by another company. Shakespeare put some money of his into the company, which actually did pretty well, which started off his career. And afterwards, the original owner of the theater died off, and Shakespeare had all this money. He wanted to continue his plays and stuff. So he made the globe. And so the lease had expired in London, but they legally took wood in the design of the original copy, and they made the globe. And it was the unique twist Shakespeare was the circular shape and the 20-sided polygon and the opening scene. So why 3D modeling is important? Basically, innovation, creativity, and innovation in future careers such as architecture, historical buildings, and then it's widely used in everywhere. Also, for construction, it's very good because you get a 3D model before you're actually making it. You're spending $1 million making something you want to see before you build it. So the objective of the Globe Theater was basically recreating the Globe Theater in a mini 3D printed scale, and it was opening the eyes of the youth to advanced technology and also helping people understand history through technology. So the first phase was dimensions. Basically, everything started from me just searching everything up. This is the hardest part, I would say, compared to the modeling, actually, because I found this one guy who gave me 4x4 dimensions of the globe, but there's no seating dimensions anywhere, I'll tell you. Spent a week trying to find dimensions somewhere. Door sizes I could find, and then where everything was kind of difficult because there's no dimensions of that. So it's basically outer wall, inner wall, stage, and then the pathways. So basically the scale was 1 to 74, which is basically every 74 meters of the real thing is 1 unit of the small one. And then so everything was converted from inches to millimeters for the software. And then it was just repeat after everything for the size. The 1 cube took 4, 5, 6 measurements. So basically it was a Tinkercad, which is the free-based website. And then there would be simple shapes taken from the CAD software, which they gave, and then they would be manipulated. So basically, I can talk about with this. There'd be a hole, so that would be negative space in this 3D world, and then there'd be a full shape. So each time to make this gap, make the inside gap, a negative block had to be used, exported, and then imported to get this model. This is for the benches. You can see how some of it's cut off because if you don't align it properly with the negative space, then it's not working as well. So we go after that, that's the floor. We go to rough of the outline, so we got the doors. We have some of the steps and the stuff. So to find the benches and then the stairs, I used a rebuilt one in London, which after the original globe had been burned down from a cannon explosion. I calculated the benches and the stairs and how many were compared to the picture. And then after all of that, basically just was keep adding to it until I got the first floor. So then for the second, third, it was basically everything was the same as the outside, but there was no doors or the steps, and then there was just walls for separate viewing rooms for the richer class. Yeah. And then the printing phase was everything went well. I wish I just time managed pretty better. But so the only failures I had were one night it didn't work out because I didn't put glue on the bed. So the whole thing was spaghetti when I woke up the next morning. And then there are warping issues of the print models, which is basically when layers are put down and then when they're cooling another printer, they start cooling down and they start warping the sides. And basically just fix that is temperature and how fast it's printing, and also just sanding the bottom, which is also pretty easy. And then just the printer settings were basically like temperature, so it's PLA 190C, and then it was pretty slow. It was like 60 millimeters per second. And then it was basically converting G code into the printer and then placed on an SD card. And everything was basically chopped into parts and then imported. And then painting process was basically the 3D model was all glued by plastic glue, which I found on Amazon. And then it was also joined by 3D pens where some of the gaps were. And then so everything, it was pretty stable, I found. You could hold it with one hand and it wouldn't move, stay together. So I didn't think a cardboard was necessary, but you can always add it. And then so after that, I sanded the whole outside. So over our break, I sanded each layer day by day, and then I would go outside, spray paint it. Did have a failure. It was kind of windy outside, and spray paint is spray, so it's kind of like polka dots inside now, which you can also sand and just repaint. But also with school, AP classes, didn't find the time to fix everything. And then the final model is in Miss Barley's room right now. And then the final pictures. So first we have all the way to the bottom left, we have all the parts printed, and you can see every blue tape, that's where a seam would be. So all of those seams had to be glued or 3D penned together. And then above in my room, I'm putting it together, I'm sanding all of it, and with 3D pen, jointing it. That's the first layer, so the couple parts. And then basically I spray painted the outside, and then just how big it is compared to the coconut water. And then this is Miss Bartley's room presentation. So important lessons was I was not the happiest with the outcome, but it's always about the process, not the results. And then 3D designing, I love 3D designing, so I started 3D printing in 2020 and got a cheap printer, $100 at that time, and things have been crazy advanced nowadays. We got a new printer at school, basically does everything for you. It's crazy fast too. Not an artist, spray paint, don't know a lot about it. I just spray paint cabinets and stuff for fun. And then we have the 4 C's: communication, collaboration, critical thinking, character. Communication, I basically was complex ideas with Miss Barley and Mr. D about how to do everything, what the size and everything was. And it was basically trying to teach students, engage students with the 3D model. Collaboration was basically working with the mentors. And then when the original idea failed, I had to go back and restart my whole process. And even taking advice and feedback from Mr. D, how he thought about the whole process. And the critical thing was basically doing all the math over and over again, repeated math, and converting everything, making everything sizable, making sure everything's right. And the character was just mindset, going through the whole 3D modeling design, which took the longest, was the most fun about everything, because you can see day by day how it's going to become the best thing ever. Thank you.